Hello and welcome to my online tutorial for oil painting. So today I'm painting a river flowing between two cliffs, and it's probably going to be a little difficult because there are different elements like rocks and water. So before I start the painting, I'm going to do a little sketch to understand the composition and talk about the horizon line. So normally the horizon line should be a straight horizontal line, but since my painting has the river flowing through the cliffs, I'm going to make the horizon line staggered to get the accurate essence of the perspective here. So this is like a subtle detail which has to be kept in mind because that's where most of us make a mistake. So now I'm adding shades of white and grey. As I said before, the farther the objects are, it is going to be light in color, and the closest objects are going to be the darkest. So according to my sketch here, the cliff on the right hand side is going to have the darkest shades of color, and also the similar shades will be reflected in the water below. So this is like a very simple but effective way to understand the painting that I'm about to start. So let's jump in and start the painting. As I've said before, the most effective way to start a painting is to figure out what the base color of your painting should be. In this landscape I have a lot of different elements, but I figure most of my painting is going to be based on the color brown, which I will use as the base shade for the cliffs. So I decided to paint the entire canvas in brown first. And to do this I created a diluted shade of brown using a lot of oil so that I can cover up my entire canvas all at once. Now keep in mind, since I'm using a lot of oil, it's gonna take a long while to dry out before I do the second coat of colors. And it's absolutely necessary to let it dry all out so that I can put new colors on top later on. So now that the base coat has dried completely, I'm going to start with painting the sky first with a light shade of blue. In this case, it's necessary to start with the background colors first so that I can create a defined boundary for the rocks later on. I am also adding the background hills in a little darker shade of blue. And this time with a dry set of colors, I'm painting over the rocks so that I can cover up all the brush marks of the base wash that I did. Now the cliff on the left hand side has to have an effect of sunlight falling over it. So I'm painting this with a mix of red and yellow so that it gets a bright effect, and also adding brown along with it. The base of this cliff is going to be covered in the shadows from the cliff on the right. So for now I'm doing that shadow with a darker shade of blue, even though I'm going to add green color on top of it later on, but I want the base coat of this shadow to be blue. Using a darker shade of green mixed with blue on the second cliff. And I'm also going to use this same darker shade at the base of the cliff because that's where the shadow is going to be the darkest. Now it's time to go back to the first cliff and add a little more yellow to make it brighter. Keep in mind that it's always going to be a trial and error process where you always need to try out the colors and see if it looks perfect. And this time I'm also keeping in mind the shape of the rocks that I would need later on. I always like to use different sides of the same flat brush to create different kind of shapes. So I'm creating the shadows with a very dark shade of brown. And also mixing it up wherever I think it's a little too much. And creating a fine boundary for the first cliff. This is the reason I wanted to get the blue sky and the background hills get done first, so that I can paint easily on top of it. There is no one way to get this kind of a rocky texture, so I'm trying anything that comes to my mind, mostly with the edge of my flat brush. And of course I'm going to add colors with the spatula as well. And also to scrape off colors wherever I need. Also mixing it with the brush in some of the places. So I would do the same process for the entire cliffs, and I'm hoping that it will give me a good texture of the rocks. Scraping the colors off with a spatula is proving to be really effective. Because it's giving me those thin lines that I want. And now it's time to revisit the shadows at the base of the cliff. And this time definitely I'm gonna add a little bit of green over it to show the hedges at the base. Now it's time to concentrate on the water reflections below. So I've used the same shades of color as above, and I'm going to break the water surface with a dark green to create the effect of the small waves. Now this is a work of a lot of patience and practice. So I suggest you keep practicing making a lot of waves. Now it's time to do the same thing with the second cliff as well, but with a darker shade of colors as I talked before. That is going to create the effect of this cliff being nearer to us. And I'm going to use the same spatula technique for creating the rocks on this one. And keep mixing it with a brush. So I'm going to revisit the reflections on the water again to add a few more broken shapes and make it a bit more detailed. And finally, I'm adding touches of green on the first cliff. So if you loved the process of this painting and you would like to see more, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and ask any questions that you would like me to talk about in my next tutorial. With that, I've finally finished my painting and I'll let you guys be the judge of how it looks. And I hope you're gonna have a great time painting something of your own.